You're listening to Lifestyle Blueprints, discussions that help you build a life of your own design. I'm Josh Hoskins. Welcome to the show. All right, episode 2. We're rocking, we're rolling. If you're watching this, I'm looking kind of dapper right now. I'm going to PSI seminar coming up soon. It's actually their basic course that I'm taking. I'm looking forward to it. Heard some great things about it. I'll be sharing how that went probably in my first episode next week. But I'm really excited about today's topic. I was actually rereading an old favorite of mine. It's called Your Brain on Art: How the Arts Transform Us by Susan Mak-Saman and Ivy Ross. It came out, I think, in 2023, I believe. I picked it up. I think it might have been that year, or it might have been early 24. I'm trying to remember. But I think you can still find it in a normal bookstore like Barnes & Noble or something like that. So I highly recommend you check it out. But I really wanted to kind of dive into some of the key kind of gleanings I've gotten from this book ever since I first read it. It's a fantastic overview on how the arts really impacts your mind's mental function. I mean, all of what your mind does is mental function, but it's really impactful towards your cognitive health. It can really help you with all kinds of different life scenarios. It can cultivate your well-being, restore your mental health in a lot of different ways. That's actually really fascinating to me. There's ways it can theoretically heal your body. Sound healing has really grown recently, and it's something that this book really dives into. I think it's just kind of an interesting way to think about how the arts are effective in our lives. It can also do a lot of really interesting things like amplify learning, can help build social bonds. And I don't think like everyone thinks of art in that way, right? Like I can kind of identify with that. If you're more of a left brain person like I am, meaning that you fall more on like the logical side, that's the sense I mean it, not the political sense. Often your inclination is to something that's nice. It's kind of the spice of life, but it's not the steak. And if you're someone who is a highly logical, analytical person, might even be neurodivergent in some way, arts, like you tend to be interested in things as means to an end, whereas arts seem to be more of an end in and of themselves. It's like more of a pleasure, or it's a indulgence rather than a practical benefit to your life. I would challenge that. A lot of what I've learned over the past few years has really caused me to rethink art's role in my life, and I want to share how it can really be effective for you in different ways if you make art part of your overall lifestyle. I highly recommend that you make building an artistic taste part of your overall lifestyle and your life design. It's extremely enriching, and I'm using the word enrich I'm careful about using that word because it's actually a big part of how the arts are discussed in academia and in the way that it affects your neuroplasticity. Going to be diving into that a little bit. But the overall message I'd like to share before I dive too deep into this is the arts are incredibly important for your brain's formation. They're important for the way you build social bonds. Your emotional depth is often decided by the art that you consume and that you keep around. And that's proven by science. That's an actual fact. It's something that can be backed up by study, by research. And because of that, I highly recommend that you make the building of your artistic taste part of your life and you form that into the way you go through life. So I want to go through some of what this book in particular goes through. I'm going to add some of my own kind of thoughts to this, but it has a really strong opening. This is a quote by Richard Kamler. "Art is our one true global language. It speaks to our need to reveal, heal, and transform. Art transcends our ordinary lives and lets us imagine what's possible." Like there is seriously transformative power in the arts. One thing that I think is really interesting, it's something that's been found through study. I think this was in the 1960s. There was this lady who found out that if you take two groups of rats and in one cage give them what's called an enriched environment, meaning you give it toys, you give it things to play with, you give it things to look at and experience, and then you take a cage that is not so enriched, that's plain, kind of like the stereotypical dude's one-bedroom apartment bedroom with just like a TV and a stand. What you find is that actually the rats who were in the enriched environment had I think 6% larger cerebral cortex, or whatever the outer layer of your brain is. And that is a very important part of your brain when it comes to different types of cognitive functions. Another thing is what they found through mental health. They found, for example, people with Alzheimer's will often be able to recall things that they previously weren't able to in their condition because they experienced a piece of art, say a sound or maybe a painting, or they smell something even because it's linked to your sense perception, that they associated with that thing that they had forgotten. So, and I mean, I think that's something everyone can relate to a degree. Like everyone, like, you know, every once in a while I'll smell something that brings me back to a very specific moment in my life that I associate that smell with. And that can be the case for all types of different art. So one big thing that I would recommend as part of your lifestyle, if you really want to get the full benefit of having art in your life in some way, build enriched environments in the places you frequent, in your bedroom, in your house, if you have a place that you work where you have like your own environment, maybe your cubicle or something, or your desk. Really think practically about how you can enrich it with art, because it actually has a profound effect on your brain's function and the way that different blood flows go to different parts of your brain. It's really important. It's also very impactful for the way that you learn. So art is actually a proven learning aid in a way. There have been plenty of studies done where teachers who will play certain types of music during certain lessons, as one example, can actually strengthen their students' ability to learn because of their association of the music and the lesson, things like that. It's really fascinating. And that goes for all types of art. That goes not just for music. I think music is one of the easiest things to point to because it's so easily done in the background. It doesn't necessarily require a whole lot of your immediate focus to consume music as an art, but it really does work with any type of art because in all of its different forms, art is very intimately connected with parts of our brain that have to do with emotion, like the amygdala, things like that. And what's interesting is how easily we're able to remember things, whether it's like remembering a certain experience or remembering things you've learned, any kind of way you take in information. What determines if a short-term memory is converted to a long-term memory, and if it's something that you're able to recall easily, is how much emotion was present during that experience, and your brain basically infuses that emotion into the memory. What art is able to do is, because art is so directly associated with emotional processes in the mind, if you are able to strategically use art in conjunction with anything that you're learning, maybe you're listening to music you enjoy while you read, maybe just have paintings or some type of art piece hanging on the wall while you're working on different projects, that kind of thing, that actually, believe it or not, can directly impact how well you're able to learn and how well you're able to recall things and how cognitively sharp you are. It's really fascinating. And I'm really passionate about this because I think a lot of people, and I'll say I personally think a lot of men in particular, see art as a pleasure, as an indulgence, rather than a practical thing that can really positively impact your life and your lifestyle in so many different ways. So I think this is a key thing, that if you're not consciously integrating art into your life, it's something that's really worth doing. And more so than consuming art, I would also say creating any kind of art. They found that, especially in children, I think is a really interesting example. Children who have some kind of artistic discipline as they grow up, maybe it's playing an instrument, maybe it's painting, maybe it's something else, they come out of childhood with a demonstrably higher aptitude for executive function, meaning the part of you that's able to basically commit to and execute tasks on a high level. Children who are raised with some kind of artistic discipline like that do much better in that area. I don't have a specific study to cite for you, but that's definitely something you could easily look up. And I think even as an adult, like obviously your childhood's very formative, but as an adult, incorporating artistic pursuits in your life, it's not a waste of time. It's absolutely something that can sharpen you. It bleeds into other aspects of your life, and it makes just more parts of your overall lifestyle enjoyable. So I think it's absolutely something that, even if you don't consider yourself a very artistic person, because I absolutely don't. I am as logical, left-brained as they come. I like analyzing things. I enjoy looking at reports. I was absolutely more of a mathematics person. I was a math kid growing up. I like the analytical side to everything. However, I all the more really focus on making sure that there's art present in my life. I don't always do the best job of it, but it's something that I really do take passion in. It's one of the big reasons why I've gotten so into EDM and like rave music, which I covered in my last episode. And I think it's a massive thing that you should consider incorporating into your life on that basis. But there's also other, I think, cool ways that art can make itself part of your lifestyle. And, in the same way that education of different types is important for your intellectual depth, art is very vital for your emotional depth. We often think that we are thinking beings who feel, but we're actually feeling beings who think. So making sure that you have the right emotional depth and that you're actively cultivating that is very important for making sure that everything else in your life is properly attuned, that you're able to put the right priority on things, that you're able to properly value different things in your life. And art in particular, and developing a good artistic taste, figuring out what you enjoy inside of art can lead to an absolutely better understanding of yourself, but it can also directly increase depth in your overall emotional range, give you a much better understanding of how your emotions work, because art overall is something that directly, again, accesses a lot of the emotional parts of our brain. It forms emotional bonds. And as a result of that, you having some kind of artistic pursuit or just incorporating art into your life, into your lifestyle, making your environments more artistically enriched is a huge benefit for you. And it's definitely highly impactful in a good way towards making your lifestyle better. There is even interesting research coming out about how art can actually heal the body, especially in the sound area, like sound healing. But from what I understand, and blow me up in the comments if I'm wrong about this, please, the way that vibration acts as a natural stress reliever, basically, and the way that that's incorporated into sound, like at first I thought it was definitely more of a woo-woo hippie like concept, the way that different vibrations of different sounds and whatever are impactful to your life, like, and to your body specifically. I at first thought that was pretty woo-woo. The research coming out is actually pretty interesting. But yeah, here's what I will say. I've said this before and am definitely going into like something that you could debate. But to me, art is also really impactful because it not only are people, and I apply this to reading a lot. When you read a book, not only are you receiving a condensed and summarized version of someone's best knowledge, but whatever state of being, or maybe an easier term is state of mind, that person, the author or the creator of that piece of art was in, I believe is actually infused into that piece of art. It's kind of woo-woo, but I think it's genuinely true. And there might be ways that manifests externally that you could explain through different types of science and that kind of thing, different types of measurement for sure. But I think the principle is ultimately what remains. I think that's part of why religious texts have so much draw. I think that's why certain music gets more popular than other types of music. I think it's genuinely as a result of the author or the creator of that work being so infused or being in such a positive state of mind or in a positive state of being, hyper present to the moment. And because of that, they're able to bring that presence that they have or whatever emotions that they were feeling, and they kind of condense it into that piece of art. And our minds as humans are able to pick up on that when we consume that piece of art later on. So I think that's really interesting. I ultimately, as great as all this stuff is, I'm actually more involved and interested in how art is just enriching to your life overall. Like if you walk into an environment that is enriched with art, there's paintings on the wall, maybe there's music in the background, the place smells good, which is, that's debatable if that's a form of art, but I think it kind of is, choosing what kind of scents that you like and different ways that you bring that into your home or to your environment. There's a almost foundational difference between walking into a place that has that level of care and touch and a place that doesn't. And I think as mundane as that difference might seem, that is actually kind of a summary of the difference between a life that has a lot of meaning, that's fulfilling, that's fun, that's vibrant, and a life that is dull or unfulfilling, or I don't want to say unmeaningful because that's kind of harsh. I think everyone's life has meaning. but is just less vibrant, you know? And I really recommend, I mean, more than I can really state. It's hard to overemphasize this or overstate it. Bring some art into your life. I think it'll be massive for you if you don't already. And find ways to, if you are interested in art, like deepen your horizons. I mean, art is very linked to neuroplasticity. And if you're able to broaden your taste in art overall, that is highly linked to neuroplasticity. And if you don't know, neuroplasticity is basically your brain's ability to adapt to new things and come up with new ideas as a result. So if you are looking for a way to make sure that stays sharp, you know, one of my biggest fears in life, honestly, is developing any kind of cognitive decline, which is maybe a silly fear because, you know, to a degree, like your brain's gonna, you know, that's gonna happen as you get older. That could be argued. But I'm very interested in making sure that my mind stays healthy going into my old age. And when I discovered that art was a way to keep your mind sharp, to keep your neuroplasticity generally up, to off mental health issues of all kinds of different forms and variances, I really got invested into it. And I've the most successful periods of my life, you know, you can argue whether this is causation or correlation, but a lot of the most successful phases of my life happened to be when I was also diving deep into different artistic pursuits, or was trying new ways of consuming art, or was trying to bring more depth to the way I consumed art. So yeah, you know, go check out a new kind of music this week. Go to an art exhibit. I've done that a few times. I did it a few times last year when it was not something I normally did, but I was actually surprised at how well I enjoyed the different experiences. Like, I went to like a Van Gogh thing that's actually been touring around the country. I've been to different like art exhibits, different art walks, and there is something, I mean, they're cool just activities to do as just things to do. But also, like, if you really consciously take in the art that are at these different experiences, it can actually bring a lot of the different benefits I've been speaking about, but especially you'll feel things that you weren't expecting to feel, and it'll bring you more in tune with yourself than you might expect. So yeah, I think I will leave it there. Hey, leave a comment if you agree or you disagree. If you're an artist, hey, share some ways that this has affected you or impacted you, and let the others listening know what that looks like. But hey, this has been Josh Hoskins with Legendary Life Media, Lifestyle Blueprints. See you on the next episode. Talk to you later.